This gift was supposed to make me the happiest man alive. Instead, it shattered everything. My name's Alex. I'm 34, an IT engineer who's spent most of his life behind screens, fixing code and building systems that don't talk back. It's a quiet gig, remote, well-paid, the kind of job that lets me stay in my own head. But I've never been the stoic type. Deep down, I'm a romantic, the sort of guy who believes in grand gestures and happy endings. For the last 5 years, that belief had a name, Sophie. My wife. My everything. Sophie's 30, and she's a force of nature. Where I'm steady and predictable, she's a whirlwind, charismatic, emotional, the kind of woman who can charm a stranger in 5 seconds flat. Her laugh fills a room, her energy pulls people in like gravity. When we met, I couldn't believe she picked me. Me, the guy who'd rather debug a server than dance at a party. But she did, and I've spent every day since trying to be worthy of her. That's why the necklace mattered so much. She'd been dropping hints for months, casual little comments about this piece she'd seen in a boutique downtown. "It's so me, Alex," she'd say, her eyes lighting up as she scrolled through her phone, showing me the ad. It was delicate, a thin gold chain with a pendant that caught the light like a tiny star. Expensive, sure, but I'd been squirreling away extra cash from freelance gigs just to see her face when I gave it to her. I pictured her wearing it, that dazzling smile breaking through, and me finally feeling like I'd done something perfect. The day I brought it home, I was a nervous wreck. I'd hidden the velvet box in my laptop bag, waiting for the right moment. That night, after she got back from some work thing, I made my move. "Close your eyes," I said, grinning like an idiot as I pulled it out. She humored me, her lips twitching into a smirk, and when she opened them, there it was, nestled in the box, gleaming under our kitchen lights. "Oh, Alex, it's gorgeous," she gasped, throwing her arms around me. I swear my heart stopped for a second. She put it on right then, twirling in front of the hallway mirror, the pendant swaying against her collarbone. "You're the best," she said, kissing me quick and hard. I couldn't stop staring at her. For once, I'd nailed it. That was the high point. A few days later, things started feeling off. I noticed the necklace wasn't on her dresser where she usually kept her jewelry. It wasn't in the little wooden box she used for her rings and earrings either. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe she'd worn it out and left it somewhere safe. But then a week passed, and I still hadn't seen it. Curiosity got the better of me. We were eating dinner one night takeout, because she'd been too tired to cook, and I decided to ask. "Hey, where's the necklace?" I kept my tone light, casual, like it was no big deal. She didn't even look up from her phone, just kept scrolling through whatever feed she was lost in. "Oh, I sent it for cleaning," she mumbled, barely audible over the clink of her fork. I paused, my chopsticks hovering over my plate. "Cleaning? Already?" She'd only worn it once, maybe twice. The pendant wasn't tarnished, the chain hadn't tangled. It didn't add up. "Really?" I said, tilting my head. "It's brand new." She finally glanced at me, her hazel eyes flickering with something annoyance, maybe, before she shrugged. "Yeah, well, I wanted it to stay perfect. You know how I am." Her voice was too quick, too flat, like she'd rehearsed it. I wanted to push, to ask why she'd send a week-old necklace halfway across town for no reason, but I didn't. I just nodded, forcing a smile. "Makes sense," I lied, shoving a bite of noodles into my mouth to keep from saying more. Looking back, I should have seen it then. That little crack in her story, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes, it was the first sign. But I didn't want to see it. I trusted her. Loved her. I'd built my whole life around her, and the idea that something might be wrong felt like a glitch I didn't know how to fix. So I let it go, buried the unease under a pile of work emails and late-night coding sessions. Big mistake. That necklace wasn't just gone. It was the start of everything falling apart. I've always been good at solving problems. It's what I do: untangle messy code, find the bug, make things work again. But after that dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was broken in my own life, and I didn't have the tools to fix it. Sophie's excuse about the necklace stuck in my head like a bad line of code, looping over and over. Sent it for cleaning. Sure. I tried to let it go, I really did, but the more I thought about it, the less it made sense. The next few days, I started paying attention. Not in some creepy, paranoid way, just noticing things. Sophie'd always been a night owl, staying up late texting or scrolling through her phone, but now she was cagey about it. She'd angle the screen away from me when I walked by, or she'd snap it shut if I got too close. Just work stuff, she'd say, flashing that smile of hers, the one that used to melt me. It still did, kind of, but now it felt like a mask. I'd catch her staring off into space sometimes, her lips twitching like she was holding back a secret. When I'd ask what was up, she'd laugh it off. Nothing, babe. You worry too much. Maybe I did. Maybe I was imagining it all. But then there were the late nights. She worked in marketing, so events and happy hours weren't new. Lately, though, they'd gotten more frequent. Girls' night, she'd say, breezing out the door in a cloud of perfume and heels, her hair swept up just the way I liked it. She'd come back past midnight, her cheeks flushed, her energy buzzing. I'd ask how it went, and she'd give me these vague, bubbly answers, oh, just catching up, before disappearing into the shower. Once, I swear I smelled cigarette smoke on her jacket. None of her girlfriends smoked. I didn't either. It lingered in my nose all night, sharp and wrong. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being ridiculous? 5 years of marriage, and here I was, obsessing over a missing necklace and some weird vibes. I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous husband who checks her phone or follows her around. I loved her too much for that. So I tried to drown it out. I threw myself into work, debugging scripts until my eyes burned, blasting music through my headphones to block the questions. It didn't help. Every time she left the house, every time she dodged a straight answer, the doubt grew like a shadow I couldn't outrun. Then came the weekend. She said she was meeting her friend Lisa for brunch, some fancy place downtown. I'll be back by 3, she promised, kissing me on the cheek before she left. I nodded, told her to have fun, and spent the morning tinkering with a side project. 3 o'clock rolled around. Then 4. By 5, I texted her. Hey, everything okay? No reply. I waited, pacing the living room, telling myself it was fine, she'd lost track of time, her phone died, whatever. At 6, she finally texted back, sorry, ran into some old coworkers. Home soon. I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Old coworkers? Since when? When she got home, it was almost 8. She burst in, all apologies and smiles, juggling a takeout bag from some place we never went. I'm starving, want some, she said, kicking off her shoes. Her hair was messy, her lipstick smudged just enough to notice. I forced a grin. Sure. How was Lisa? She froze for half a second, then laughed. Oh, same old Lisa. Whining about her boss. She turned away, unpacking the food, chattering about nothing. I watched her, my gut twisting. Lisa hadn't posted anything about brunch on her Instagram stories, not that I checked. Okay, I had. I wasn't proud of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. Sophie was out cold beside me, her breathing soft and even, but my mind wouldn't shut off. The necklace. The late nights. The way she'd been pulling away, bit by bit, like a thread unraveling. I kept telling myself I was overreacting, marriages have rough patches, right? But deep down, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know how wrong yet. I'd always thought I was good at reading patterns, years of staring at code taught me that. But Sophie wasn't a program I could debug. The more I watched her, the more I felt like I was chasing a ghost. Her late nights, her excuses, the way she'd brush me off with that perfect smile, it was all piling up, a stack of red flags I couldn't ignore anymore. I didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself I was paranoid, that I was turning into some clingy, insecure jerk. But by then, the doubt wasn't just a whisper, it was screaming. It all came crashing down on a Friday night. She'd said she was going out with the girls again, another vague plan, another quick kiss goodbye. I nodded, played along, but this time I couldn't sit still. I tried working, tried gaming, tried blasting music until the walls shook. Nothing worked. My head was a mess, replaying every weird moment from the last few weeks, the necklace disappearing, the smoke on her jacket, that smudged lipstick from the brunch she'd been hours late for. I needed air. I grabbed my keys, told myself I'd just drive around, clear my mind. That's when it happened. I wasn't looking for her, I swear I wasn't, but my phone buzzed with a notification as I sat at a red light. A friend had tagged me in a post, some dumb meme about coding late. I opened the app to reply, and there it was, staring me in the face, a suggested post from some guy's account I didn't follow. Daniel. I didn't know him, but his face looked vaguely familiar, maybe from one of Sophie's work stories. He was in a restaurant, smirking at the camera, a glass of wine in one hand. And around his neck, dangling from a chain he had no business wearing, was my necklace. The one I'd bought for her. The one she'd sent for cleaning. My stomach dropped. I clicked the photo, zoomed in, my hand shaking so bad I nearly dropped the phone. There it was, the pendant, the exact same gold shimmer I'd spent weeks agonizing over. The geotag said it was a place downtown, some upscale spot she'd never mentioned. The caption read, "Good company, better vibes. Posted an hour ago." I don't know how long I sat there, the light turning green, then red again, cars honking behind me. My chest felt tight, like someone had punched through it and ripped out whatever was left of my trust. I drove home in a daze, my mind racing faster than the engine. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe she'd sold it, lost it, lent it to someone. But even as I ran through the excuses, I knew they were garbage. She'd given it to him. My gift, our moment, handed off to some smug man like it meant nothing. I parked, stumbled inside, and sank onto the couch, staring at the wall. I wanted to call her, scream at her, demand answers, but I couldn't move. All I could do was wait. She got home around midnight, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. I heard her heels click on the hardwood, saw her silhouette in the doorway as she tossed her purse on the counter. "Hey, you're still up," she said, her voice light, teasing. She flipped on the kitchen light, and I stood, holding my phone like a loaded gun. "Where've you been?" I asked, my throat dry. She froze, just for a second, then laughed. "Out with Lisa and them." "I told you." "Stop lying," I said, louder than I meant to. Her eyes widened, but she didn't flinch. I shoved the phone at her, the photo blaring on the screen. "Who is this, Sophie? And why's he wearing the necklace I gave you?" Her face changed, paled, then hardened, and I knew. I didn't need her to say it, but she did anyway. "It's not what you think," she started, her voice trembling. "He's just a friend." "Don't," I cut her off. "Don't insult me." She bit her lip, tears welling up, and then it spilled out. "Okay, fine. It's Daniel. We've been seeing each other. But it's not serious, Alex," I swear. I laughed, a bitter, ugly sound I didn't recognize. "Not serious? You gave him my gift. Our money. What else did you give him, huh?" She flinched, and that's when the real bomb dropped. I lent him some cash," she mumbled, looking away. "From our savings. For his business thing. He said he'd pay it back." I staggered back, the room spinning. Our savings. The account we'd built together, years of late nights, skipped vacations, my overtime, all funneled to this guy. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved so hard it hurt, and I didn't know her anymore. She was crying now, reaching for me, but I stepped away. "How much?" I asked, my voice ice. She wouldn't answer, just sobbed harder. That was enough. The truth was out, and it was worse than I'd ever imagined. I don't remember much after Sophie's confession, just fragments, like a corrupted file flickering on a dying hard drive. Her standing there, mascara streaking down her face, her voice cracking as she begged me to listen. Me staring at her, numb, my throat too tight to speak. The sound of her sobbing as I walked out of the kitchen, leaving her crumpled on the floor like a discarded draft of a life I thought we'd share. I didn't yell. Didn't throw anything. I didn't have it in me. 5 years of marriage, 5 years of late-night talks, quiet mornings, stupid inside jokes, and it felt like someone had yanked the power cord from my entire existence. I was offline, rebooting, stuck in some endless error loop. I ended up in my office, the spare room where I kept my computers. It's my sanctuary: 2 monitors, a tangle of cables, a shelf of old tech manuals I never threw out. The glow of the screens was the only light, casting jagged shadows on the walls. I sat there for hours, replaying it all. Daniel. The necklace. Our savings. It wasn't just the betrayal that gutted me, it was how blind I'd been. I trusted her with everything: my heart, my future, my damn bank account, and she'd handed it over to some sleazy guy she met at a corporate happy hour. I kept seeing his smirk from that photo, the way he dangled my gift like a trophy he'd won in some game I didn't even know I was playing. It made me sick, physically sick, like my stomach was turning itself inside out. Sleep didn't come that night. I stayed up, digging through our finances on my laptop, the blue light burning my eyes. I had to know how deep the hole was. Our joint account, the one we'd built for a house, maybe kids someday, all those dreams we'd sketched out over cheap wine, was a disaster. Thousands gone. She'd been siphoning it off for months, little transfers here and there, disguised as groceries or work expenses. I found emails too, buried in her inbox. She hadn't even bothered to log out of the desktop we shared. Messages to Daniel, flirty at first, then desperate. I sent you the last $2,000, please tell me it's working, she'd written a week ago. His reply: relax, babe. Big payout soon. Big payout. What a joke. It was a scam, some half-baked business venture, and she'd fallen for it hook, line, and sinker. Worse, she'd dragged me down with her, betting our future on his empty promises. By morning, I was a wreck, exhausted, hollow, my hands trembling from too much coffee and not enough food. But something else was creeping in. Anger. Not the loud kind, I'd never been that guy, but a cold, sharp fury that settled into my bones like frost on a window. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. They didn't get to win. Sophie stumbled into the kitchen around noon, her eyes red and swollen, her hair a tangled mess. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Alex, can we talk? She said, her voice small, fragile. I didn't look at her, just kept staring at the coffee pot as it dripped. What's left to say? I muttered, pouring a cup I didn't even want. She tried anyway, apologies tumbling out, excuses piling up, promises to fix it. I'll get the money back, I swear. I was stupid, okay? I love you. I laughed, a dry sound that echoed in the quiet house. You don't love me. You love the thrill. You love him. She kept going, trailing me around the house as I packed a bag. I wasn't leaving for good, not yet, but I couldn't breathe in that space anymore. Where are you going? She demanded, grabbing my arm, her nails digging in. I shook her off, harder than I meant to. Anywhere but here. I drove to a cheap motel that night, the kind with a flickering neon sign that buzzed like an insect in carpet stained with God knows what. It smelled like regret and stale cigarettes, but it was better than lying next to her, pretending everything was fine. I checked in, tossed my bag on the floor, and collapsed onto the lumpy bed, staring at the cracked ceiling. That's when my mind started turning, not toward forgiveness, that ship had sailed and sunk, but toward consequences. They'd taken everything from me. My trust. My stability. My pride. I wasn't going to let it end there. I'm an IT guy. I fix things, break things, build things. I know systems, how they work, how they fail, where the weak spots are. And I knew Sophie and Daniel weren't as smart as they thought. She was sloppy, leaving digital footprints everywhere, passwords I could guess in my sleep, accounts she didn't bother securing. He was arrogant, flaunting his business on social media like no one would catch on. I could use that. I didn't have a plan yet, not fully, but the pieces were there: bank records, emails, that damn photo still burned into my retinas. I could hit them where it hurt most. Money. Reputation. Stability. All the things they'd stripped from me, I'd take from them. The next day, I called a lawyer friend, kept it vague, just divorce advice for now, testing the waters. I started pulling data, quietly, methodically. I logged into our accounts with passwords she'd recycled for years, her birthday, our anniversary, predictable as hell. I traced transactions, screenshots piling up on my desktop. I wasn't crying anymore. I wasn't even shaking. I was calm, colder than I'd ever been, like someone had flipped a switch and turned off the Alex who'd loved her. Sophie texted me non-stop, "Come home. Please. I'm sorry." Over and over, lighting up my phone until I muted it. I didn't reply. She didn't deserve it. Neither did he. They'd lit the match, played their game, had their fun. Now it was my turn. I was going to burn it all down, and I'd make damn sure they felt the heat. I felt like a predator. For the first time in weeks, I had control, real control, and I was going to use it. Sophie and Daniel thought they'd played me, thought I'd just roll over and take it. They didn't know me at all. I'd spent my life building systems, finding weak points, making things work. Now I was going to break theirs. It took me a few days to pull it all together. I barely slept, living off vending machine snacks and cheap coffee, my laptop screen my only companion. First, I dug deeper into Daniel. His social media was a goldmine, cocky posts about big moves and hustle life, pictures of him in overpriced suits and rented cars. A quick search showed he'd been bouncing between shady business ventures for years, no real job, just a trail of failed schemes and pissed off investors. The guy was a con artist, and Sophie had bought his act wholesale. I found his email linked to a crowdfunding page for his latest project, some vague tech startup promising insane returns. The perfect hook. Next, I turned to Sophie's mess. Her passwords were child's play, same ones she'd used forever, too lazy to change them. I got into our bank accounts, her email, even her cloud storage. She'd been careless, leaving everything wide open. I found more messages to Daniel, dozens of them begging for updates on the money she'd sent. "I can't keep this from Alex much longer," she'd written a month ago. His replies were all charm and deflection. "Trust me, babe, we're golden." I also found transfer receipts, $12,000 total, bled out of our savings over 6 months. My hand shook as I saved every file, every screenshot. This wasn't just evidence. The plan came together like a script I'd been coding in my head. Step 1: Ruin Daniel. I used a burner email to tip off a few tech blogs, anonymous, untraceable, about his startup. I attached proof, screenshots of his crowdfunding page, his posts promising payouts he'd never deliver, and a scrubbed copy of Sophie's transfers to make it look like he'd scammed multiple investors. I knew those blogs lived for drama, they'd eat it up. Sure enough, within 48 hours, the story broke: serial entrepreneur or serial scammer? Daniel Hayes exposed. His crowdfunding got shut down, his accounts frozen pending investigation. I watched his social media implode, angry comments, old marks crawling out of the woodwork. He was done. Step 2: Hit Sophie where it hurt. I didn't just want her broke, I wanted her humiliated. Using my IT skills, I crafted a fake paper trail. I linked her to Daniel's scam, making it look like she'd been in on it from the start. Emails she sent to fake investors, doctored bank records showing she'd pocketed cash. It wasn't hard, I knew her habits, her digital signature. I sent it all to her boss, her coworkers, even her gossipy friend group, from an anonymous account. By the next day, her phone was blowing up, people demanding answers, calling her a liar, a thief. Her job fired her on the spot, reputation risk, they said. Her savings? I drained what was left, routing it through a maze of crypto wallets she'd never trace. Legal? Maybe not. Satisfying? Hell yes. I didn't stop there. I filed for divorce, fast-tracked it with my lawyer friend. The papers cited infidelity and financial misconduct, every dirty detail laid out, backed by the evidence I'd collected. She'd have nothing to fight with. When she showed up at the motel a week later, banging on my door, I almost didn't open it. But I did, just to see her face. She looked wrecked, hair wild, eyes puffy, voice hoarse from crying. "Alex, please," she sobbed. I've lost everything, my job, my friends, the money. I know I screwed up, but don't do this. I stared at her, feeling nothing but a quiet, steady calm. You did this, I said. You and Daniel. I just made sure you felt it. She tried to grab me, to pull me back, but I stepped away, shutting the door in her face. Her faded as I sat back down, the laptop still open. I'd won. They were ruined, him a pariah, her a broken shell. It wasn't joy I felt, not exactly. It was power. For once, I wasn't the fool in the story. I'd rewritten the ending, and it was mine. The dust settled slower than I expected. After I shut the door on Sophie Trieste's tear-streaked face that day at the motel, I thought I'd feel something big, triumph, maybe, or relief. But it wasn't like that. It was quieter, heavier, like the hum of a server room after you've fixed a crash. The chaos was over, the code was clean, and I was left standing in the silence, figuring out what came next. I'd torn their world apart, Daniel's scams exposed, Sophie's life in ruins, and I'd walked away with my head high. But winning doesn't erase the scars. I moved out of the motel a week later, found a small apartment downtown. Nothing fancy, just a bed, a desk, and a view of the city I didn't care much about. The divorce went through fast, Sophie didn't fight it. She couldn't. I got the savings I'd salvaged, the car, and a clean break. She texted me once after the papers were signed, a rambling mess of apologies and pleas. I'm sorry, Alex. I'm lost without you. Can we just talk? I didn't reply. Deleted it, blocked her number, and that was that. Last I heard, she'd moved back in with her parents, jobless, friendless, a ghost of the woman I'd loved. Daniel? He disappeared off the grid, probably running from the lawsuits piling up. Good riddance. I threw myself into work after that. Picked up more freelance gigs, rebuilt my savings, kept my head down. The routine was my lifeline: code, coffee, repeat. It kept the questions at bay, the ones that crept in late at night when the screen went dark. Had I gone too far? Was I the bad guy now? I didn't have answers, so I didn't look for them. I just kept moving, until the sharp edges of it all started to dull. A few months later, I met someone. Her name's Mia, quiet, sharp, a graphic designer with a dry sense of humor that sneaks up on you. We met at a coffee shop, of all places, when I spilled my latte trying to dodge a guy on a scooter. She laughed, handed me a napkin, and we started talking. It wasn't fireworks or grand romance, not like with Sophie. It was slower, steadier, like a program you test a dozen times before you run it. I liked that. No games, no secrets. Just two people figuring it out. One night, maybe 6 months after the divorce, I took her to dinner. Nothing big, just a little Italian place with chipped plates and killer pasta. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, and I finally did it. I gave her a necklace. Same style as the one I'd bought Sophie, but different enough to feel new. Gold, simple, a small pendant that caught the light. I watched her face as she opened the box, saw her smile, real and warm, not staged. It's beautiful, she said, putting it on right there. My chest tightened, but not with pain, just memory, fading fast. I smiled back. Glad you like it. Now, life's good. Not perfect, but good. I've got Mia, a solid gig, a place that feels like mine. I'm not the guy I was before, too trusting, too soft. I'm harder now, sharper, like a blade that's been through fire. I check people's stories, keep my guard up, but I haven't shut the door on love. Mia's proof of that. I still believe in it, just with my eyes open this time. Looking back, that necklace, the first one, wasn't just a gift. It was a key. It unlocked the truth, showed me who Sophie really was, what I'd been too blind to see. It broke me, sure, but it built me back stronger. Sometimes, I think, a gift doesn't just open a heart. It reveals what's inside, good, bad, or ugly. And once you know, you can't unsee it. You just decide what to do next. Me? I moved on. And I'm not looking back.